Hello everyone, welcome back to Space for Edit. On this channel we talk about all the things that they don't teach you in design school but you need to know in the real world. And in today's video we are kind of writing a little letter to our client. So as you can see by the title, this video is more geared up for the interior design client or maybe a possible client rather than the actual interior designer. But I think both sides can really soak up some good information from this. So today we are looking at 9 things that you should know before you are hiring an interior designer. So without further ado, let's get straight to point number 1. And that is you are basically hiring a full-time employee. Around here we like to talk about money and how much it costs to do things. So it was just natural for me to start with this. So what you need to understand beforehand is that when you hire an interior designer, that person or that company, they will be putting in some decent full-time hours. They will spend days, weeks, months, sometimes even years of their time working on your project. So obviously that comes at a cost. If you think about it, you are paying someone's monthly, weekly wage. So when you start to think about how much actually it costs to hire an interior designer, it does rack up a little bit. And obviously it's not just hours and days, it's not just time, it's the expertise, it's their knowledge and all the insight. So the more experienced designer you are working with, the more they will possibly charge for their services. So the designer that you have decided to work with should have an onboarding process. Now what that is depends on the design team that you are working with. Sometimes it's a call, a discovery call as they like to call it. Sometimes designers love to go and see the site and kind of have that walkthrough with you, but all of that is part of that briefing, onboarding stage of the design process. So during this meeting, or let's say this session, the designer will ask you all sorts of questions about the space, about what you would like to see, what are your inspirations, and just gathering information for them, ticking their own boxes. Some designers are quite relaxed about this and they will just kind of like make nods here and there and just kind of quickly write some notes down. Some people have full-on tick lists that they like to just make sure they tick off before they leave the site. Some people already send you something prior to the meeting so you can kind of go through it, read through it and familiarize yourself with it and maybe prep the answers that the designer is going to need. So just be mindful that the design process always starts with an onboarding stage, and if that stage is not there, then be a bit wary because we can't really start creating any designs without doing this part of the process. And as a follow-up, your designer should send you a document, a briefing document that speaks about all the things that were discussed in that meeting, on that call. So both sides will be using that as like a starting point for the whole of the design process. So that's why it's really important that this stage is taken seriously and you have the answers and your designer asks you the questions. So another thing that you want to make sure that you do is understand the processes. How does the designer work? What sort of design documents you will be getting from them? How do they work? What are the design stages? What are the timelines? What is their approach? So the reason being for this is that you are all on the same page and you know what to expect. You as a client should never be left in the dark or guessing what is the next step. Your designer should inform you about the next stages, about the next step, next deadlines that they are working towards to. So like I said, no one is left in the dark and you know exactly where you are in the design process. And this is really the reason why you are hiring a professional, so that you don't have to do the work, but at the same time they are giving you all the information, they are letting you know where they're up to, that you are clear on the processes that they are going through, and everyone just feels a lot more relaxed and the trust between the client and designer is just at a much better level. Make it official. Always get a contract, always sign a contract. I tell this to interior designers and now I'm telling it to you. You have to make sure that you have all the agreements in writing and that both sides, both parties have signed the document. This is really to just reiterate everyone's responsibilities. So yourself as a client, you will have responsibility to the designer, because without your feedback, without your input, we can't really process with the design, as well as the designer will have commitments to you as the client. So a contract will have all of that information in there. It will have all the deadlines, all the critical dates, and just kind of a small print. Once you have this document in place, it's just so much easier and more relaxed to be working on the design, because you can actually focus on the design rather than dealing with the small iffy stuff that is really not part of the creative process. So before you commit to this new relationship that you are about to dive in, ask yourself, is this my person? After the discovery calls, after the introduction, ask yourself, are we on the same page? Am I vibing with this person? How do I feel around them? Do I feel like I can open up and ask questions? Do I feel like we've got the same sense of humor? And just really simple vibe check. Just because you're going to spend a lot of time with your designer, unless it's like a quick turnaround, even then you want to make sure you are working with the right personalities. So ask yourself, how do I feel around this person? Do I like them? Can we have a good conversation? Are we on the same page? And if you are, great. If you are not, maybe this is not the right designer for you. I lightly touched on this before already, but the designer can only work as fast as you, the client, are making your decisions and coming back with feedback and giving us the green light on certain things and certain decisions. What you need to understand is that the longer and the more time you take to make those decisions, the further away we are moving from the initial deadline. So every single day that you do not get back to your designer is taking you further away from your deadline at the end. So it is in the interest of both sides to be quite responsive and have the energy flowing, have the conversation going. Obviously the designer needs to work at a pace that will make sure that we meet the deadline, but at the same time you will be responsible for some decision making as well during the process, so make sure that you do get involved. Slightly contrary to the point that I've just made, do trust your designer. There is nothing worse than a client micromanaging their designers. I speak for the lot of us. We love to do what we do and we love to do it for you. But when you start to get a little bit too much, on top of us, it is harder to really genuinely be excited about what we do. At the end of the day, you go to an interior designer for a reason. You've decided to work with them either because you don't have the time for it, you don't have the skill set for it, or even both. Let's just get someone in who knows what they're doing. So there you go. That's the answer right there. Just relax, take a deep breath, trust the process. Everything comes together in the end, always, and you will be very grateful for your designer that has done an amazing job for you. Unless you needed your project doing like yesterday, then you have to keep in mind that design projects, creative projects take time. There are so many moving parts, like literally interior designers are like this middle point, and we have suppliers, contractors, trends, clients, all sorts of things going around us, and we are kind of trying to manage and pull from all sides and make sense into the chaos of it. So it takes time to organize and almost orchestrate this whole symphony of yours. So just make sure that you keep that in mind, that things take time, things go wrong. We try our best to sort things out, but timescales sometimes are just the way that they are. And not to mention that the actual creative process takes time. Ideas come, inspiration comes. We try our best to give you the right solutions for your space. So all of that takes time. It doesn't just happen like that. Don't do cookie cutters, even if it is a cookie cutter scheme. I'm talking about like chain restaurants and cafes and things like that. There might be certain guidelines that we are working to, but the creativity is still there, and it's still a process, and it still takes time. So just think of it as, it's not like a quick drop in at your local takeaway. It's more like a nice sit down meal at a Michelin star restaurant, and you are about to experience a 10-course meal. It is a process, it is a journey, and just go with it. And to wrap up this video, let's just say that some things are just out of our control. I just mentioned that there are so many moving parts in interior design projects, and we are in the middle of it all. We are trying to make sense of it. We are trying our best to pull all of the strings, ask for favors, and speak to people that we don't want to be speaking to, but in a kind voice so they make things happen. We are there to make it happen. So just trust that your designer is doing everything that they can to make it happen. But sometimes it just can't be done. Maybe it can't be done within the time frame. Maybe the certain trades can't get to site. Maybe a certain item can't be delivered. Things run out of stock. Things arrive broken, and it's just a whole process. And it's not something that is static. It's not something that you pick up from a shelf, go home and enjoy. It goes through loads of phases, loads of revisions. So you can see how this live project is this kind of ball of energy that's kind of bursting around, and there's just so many things that affect it. So be kind to your designer or the design company that you are working with, and just be understanding and trust the process. It's gonna be just fine. Okay guys, that's it for today's video. I hope this was useful for someone who is looking to hire an interior designer. I hope this was useful for the existing interior design community that's following along this channel. And if you have any questions, make sure you pop them down in the comment section. If you want a quicker response, then make sure you DM me and follow me on Instagram. I'm there all over showing you the behind the scenes and all sorts of things. If you have time, stick around for these videos. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.